welcome to our Lions, Tigers, Resumes on My with Virginia, Franco, and Claire Davis, who are hoping will join soon. Been an interesting sort of day here. Just to let you guys know, there's been issues with LinkedIn streaming today. So if you can't watch this now, again, if you're trying to get in and hear us talking, you don't know this for sure, but it's on YouTube, and I actually posted this in the chat. So we'll do the best that we can. Want to thank you very much, Virginia, for joining us. And we were going to tackle a couple of different things today that came up, and we definitely want to see, people that are in the chat just joining us. So was there one thing you wanted to start off with in particular? I think you saw there's some comments or people had questions.
Yeah, well, first off, it's to the fact that people are being able to comment. No one's saying that they're not having trouble accessing us. Is that correct? So I can't see the comments.
No, well, what I've been doing off to the side is if people can post a comment that they can't get in, but won't see the stream, and we'll find that out in a few seconds. So I'll show you what'll end up happening, because it happened at 1 o'clock, happened to people at 9, happened to people at 10, and it's not everyone. So we'll see.
Okay. I mean, no specific questions, but I would love to. Yeah, I was thinking about a conversation that you and I had offline yesterday with a group of people. That we were discussing what happens if.
There you go.
I can log in. I'm on YouTube.
And that's how you'll find this out, because I put this out about an hour and a half or so ago, so people would have that access. Okay.
So anyway, Kenneth, you and I yesterday were speaking with a group of other folks in our industry, and the question was posed: someone wants to join LinkedIn for the first time. They have no presence. What sort of pieces to the profile do they need to convince someone that when you do a connection request that you're a legit person? And my initial thought is that you need to have sort of the basics filled out that give you all-star status, which includes the picture, the headline, the about section, experience, skills, and then education. But then someone else brought up the point that there are dupes out there that fill out that section and they're not legit. So another way that you can show legitimacy is to connect with one or two common people that this sort of will help to establish trust. And that was a really good point that I hadn't thought through before. So
yeah, I mean, because when I was going through, we started talking about the profile, and we talked about the priorities, and I said you have to have a picture up there, and you have to, at the very least, put in your specific jobs with some information. But this is why I asked the question in the group. The question I had was, how would you connect with someone who doesn't have much of a profile, but may either name drop me or may mention something that shows that they're a little more of a person? I mean, we all had to start somewhere, right, with 0 or 1, and maybe it was a little different time there. And I asked that as a question because I wanted to get different viewpoints, because my mindset may be different than someone else's, for sure.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was thinking about, because look, I have been duped to accepted people that I really shouldn't have. You could always start by reaching out to 1 or 2 trusted people via email and say, this is me, please connect with me, to get the ball rolling, on the platform.
I always say go to family and friends, first of all, who know who you are. Having a picture is so important. But here's a person who was we'll say technology challenged, which is a big part of it. And he didn't know where to get started. So yeah, he had the ability with me to walk through some of the steps, but LinkedIn does not make it that easy for someone who actually knows what to do, doesn't even know where to start.
They don't. I've accepted people without pictures because a lot of people come to me because they need something built from the ground up. So I sort of forgive that. It sounds silly, but a lot of people that are my age and older, I always say, find a teenager to help you navigate the platform, because sometimes they're just much more native with this stuff.
So the question I get all the time, and I'll ask it again today, is how far back do you go on a resume? Because I've had people who have worked at one company for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
That's their experience. So what I've been pretty much suggesting is that, yes, you have to list your experience, but maybe your earlier jobs at that company could be early work experience at this company just with the job titles. But I don't know if that's the right way to do it or not, because you're still listing that they worked at the company for a while.
Mhm.
Do you list all that? How would you do that?
Yeah. So what I do is, number one, I think about what the target is. And if someone is targeting a pretty senior level role, no one expects you to be, you know, just have 10 years of experience. It's not a shock for them to see a little bit more. So I am really comfortable going 15, sometimes even 17 years, 17, 18 years out. So that puts us at like 2006 to 8 is where I am comfortable listing the relevant experience. But then whatever experience from before is relevant, whether it's the roles that you held at that company or the maybe you worked at other organizations, I'll create an earlier experience section where I highlight what is relevant. Again, sometimes it's an achievement. Sometimes I'll just say, learn the industry from the ground up in X, Y, and Z roles at this company, and I'll remove the dates from it. But again, you get to pick and choose what is relevant. This is not your blueprint. It is your brochure. So if you held a role doing something that is not at all important, you do not need to include it. No one, when HR goes to verify your employment, they're not going to say, "Oh, you lied because you didn't list the role that you did back in 1989." So that's I keep in mind relevancy and target.
I think what I find a lot too with the people that just lost their jobs, I think they throw things together and they don't go into the same amount of detail as they might have for jobs a year or 2 years before because they want to get a resume out. So I'll say to them, you must have done more than this. And they're just putting it together because it's an add on. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you see that or not too on your space, that the resume, go ahead.
I mean, I see people in a rush always struggle with what to include, and they tend to just dump everything in the kitchen sink.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
And
what
that,
I find, oh, go ahead.
okay, and that also goes, I'm sorry, for people that list 10 bullet points for a 3-month assignment. I'm like, really?
Yeah. So what I find helpful, and this is what I do when I walk through writing for my clients, is I say, what brought you to the role? What was the challenge laid out before you? And when as the role came to a close, what did things look like then? So what was the before versus the after? What did you do to help move the needle from point A to point B? And then try to get some context and measurables to show that, yeah, I did get things from A to B. Those responses in your head are what you put in your resume.
And
So
I
it's
got
not a list of your responsibilities. It's a list of your achievements.
Claire is going to be joining us. I just
Yeah,
got
10
some
minutes,
messages.
she said.
Yeah. So I think for me, the biggest challenge is actually to get some, and I don't know how many people can actually comment today too, because of the whole LinkedIn live stream thing, but I want to make sure people understand that the resume, and I preach this, and I'm sure you do too, it's a starting point. You get a resume, but you have to tweak it, whether it's the job title or roles or some ways, because you're going to have different things and different accomplishments. It's not one version. And you have to be that it doesn't have to be a redo of everything, but it has to be positioned different ways for different jobs. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I always ask to see a handful of job postings of interest. And 9 times out of 10, by reviewing the job postings, you can identify commonality. And usually that commonality and requirements is the stuff that you're going to include. And so then when it comes to customization, often it's only a matter of tweaking the headline, maybe adding or subtracting a skill that is required. And then you might want to feature one bullet at the top versus another. When people are skimming a bunch of bullets on a resume, they tend to look at the very first one first. So make sure it's impactful and super relevant to that role that you're targeting. So then it's not a total do-over. It's just moving a couple of pieces around, and the customization can be done in just, a matter of 4 or 5 minutes.
Do you feel that it's we're very big on having the skills at the top of a resume where we are because that's something that's going to stick right out as opposed to burying them on the bottom. Do you have certain other suggestions or things that would make sense in a general way? Because I know every resume is different.
Yeah. So when I do a skill list, it's never longer than 3 lines. We've heard time and time again from a majority of recruiters at a wall of keywords. is not something that anyone wants to look at. So look at the hard skills related to that role. You can use Resume Builder, Career Explorer on LinkedIn to help you find those keywords, but have it at the top below your summary, above your experience section.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point because I've seen so many skills that are like detail oriented, multitasking.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
people aren't going to
those
look.
are not
Yeah,
skills.
people aren't. Those are descriptive, but no one's going to use those words to look for talent like you. So you need to think about, what are people searching for? Detail oriented is not one. But when I get to senior level, like C-suite executive level roles, I actually don't include a skill section in the resume. I might have a couple of key things at the top. Like if someone's a CEO, I might put like sales, finance, operations, and people leadership or something. I don't know, like 4 little terms to sort of show the job.
Mm-hmm.
Keywords, though, are more prevalent in that mid-level role in my experience.
I also work with, and it goes to the question, how long should a resume be? You know, I'm working with some academic resumes now, which have a
Long.
much different rule of thumb. I actually did one today, was 12 pages. And I'm like, that can be the way they are with their accomplishments. But at the same time, there are ways to portray it better. You know,
Yeah. And so academic CVs that are also used in like medical
right.
and not medical sales, but like doctors and
Mm-hmm.
they're clinical clinicians, and then federal resumes when you're applying for a job on USA Gov, those are different than the resumes that I write and you're referring to. Those are more corporate or marketing resumes.
Right.
There you list literally everything you've done since the dawn of day, every presentation, every talk you've given, everything. And so length is not the same issue. The resumes you and I are talking about are, the rule of thumb for me is less than 5 years, one page. After that, 2. Sometimes I'll go into a third. But I really try to keep it. When I go into the third page is because I have done every last bit of editing and tweaking I can do to make sure that everything that's not relevant has been cut out.
For me, the other pet peeve I get is a lot of the acronyms. I am, you know, I have acronyms from work, you have acronyms, but they don't really belong on a resume unless they're very specific to your industry. And even then, I would think twice about some of them. And I don't know how you handle that if you're getting a lot of acronyms from certain industries. Do you have people write them out? Do you have people be more general? I mean,
if someone is really going, what I want to do is I want to, if it is a really well-known industry term, like, I don't know,
AWS, Amazon Web
AWS, right? If you're in IT cloud, you don't need to spell out Amazon Web Services in my mind. But there might be something else that's unique to your company, or maybe you are looking to go beyond tech into something else, and you do need to spell that stuff out. The other situation that I came across this recently was someone that I wrote for that is targeting roles in Europe. And I had done the acronym YOY for year over year. That's a pretty standard English term, but it's not in France where this guy is. So even though he was targeting multinationals, it occurred to me I need to spell out year over year for that audience. You need to keep your audience in mind.
So this is a question that this is actually from YouTube. That's how you can tell with that thing.
Oh, okay, cool.
When applying for similar jobs within the same company, should you customize your resume for each job? Does this aid or hinder your chances?
If you are,
so let's say I've got 2 or 3 different jobs possible within the same company. What would I do? Would I send out the resume 3 times for 3 different jobs? Would I customize it, or would one resume maybe go? I mean, that could work against you, I guess. I'm not sure.
I mean, every company is different in terms of how many roles you can apply to. Big, large companies, it might be easier to apply to several roles versus, a small startup where the same person is going to look at them. So you need to think about that. If I'm responding to a specific job online, I'm going to customize it for that opportunity. What do you think?
I think in some cases, it's the most important thing you can try to find out is, even if possible, is it the same hiring manager for the 3 jobs, as opposed to maybe the different jobs have different hiring managers and maybe it goes to different people. But once your resume is online, it's in a portal that's there. And even if you tweak it, I mean, you're just going to be confusing them. And if there are similar jobs, I'm sure you can come up with a resume that is similar enough between all three. But it shouldn't just be about applying online, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's where getting a live person and getting some feedback from them, if it is the same department and certainly the same recruiter, then you want to have that conversation. I'm thinking more of, those big super siloed companies where they would never, even though it's in the portal, that their wires can cross or not cross.
I mean, what I wonder sometimes is in some cases, oh, look who just joined us.
Hey, you made it.
Oh, sorry, I'm late.
Okay.
Is Mercury in retrograde or something? Because it is a lovable chaos happening in the day at this house today.
Well, speaking about chaos, LinkedIn Live is not working, first of all.
Oh, but
Mercury.
So we are on YouTube. So it's being recorded. I added a YouTube link. So as an example, like Terry Seaman is here, and as he said, yes, no, go on LinkedIn and here to YouTube.
I love it. Oh, hey, good to see you. Well, thank you, YouTube. We'll have to come over here and stream more often.
Well, this has been going on all day, so we've been kind of having a challenge about this. So
welcome. It's grateful to other folks who had the glitches before us to give us the heads up. Claire, I'd love to hear from you because you're working with people that are targeting, big giant medical device and pharma companies. The question was asked, if you're applying to several jobs within the company, or number one, should you apply to several jobs within the same company? And then number two, should you customize your resume for each opportunity in that situation? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, great question. So, and thank you for asking it. And thank you guys so much for your flexibility as I pop in here late. I'll tell you the story at the end too, if you want to go. But I would say for me, I like to counsel my clients to choose one target at a time. And admittedly, this is the hardest part of the entire process, is choosing what you want to go after. But if you're looking to gain momentum in your search to the degree where you're starting to get interviews for things within weeks instead of months, your target has to be specific. Now, that doesn't mean you can't apply to other roles within the company, but for your strategy, I would recommend that you choose one goal at a time and give yourself some time. So choose your favorite and give it, a few weeks. And if you're seeing like, oh, okay, as I do informational interviews with people at the company or who have left the company, I'm finding that maybe this isn't exactly what I want, then switch your target. But give yourself enough time to really do the 360-degree approach that it takes today, because especially in healthcare, and I'm sure anybody watching who has friends in medical sales or who maybe is in the industry themselves knows that companies that used to be having layoffs maybe once in a blue moon or maybe even once a year, looking at you, big med tech companies who chop the bottom 10%, now it's multiple times a year. So I say that not to scare anyone, but I say that to say, you've got to use these other avenues to get you into that one particular target. It's got to be your networking. Virginia, I'd love for you to talk about the networking that routine that you shared with me a few years ago and that you still talk about. I coach my clients in the way that you taught me, because what a great, simple and easy way to do it. But focus first, and then pivot should you find that you're not getting the traction you want or it's not exactly the role you want. What I find is if you apply to too many things in one company, they either can't quite decide what you're all about. And it also hurts your progress, because if you're looking to, really get in and get visible with people in operations, but also you also are applying to a market access job where you're trying to make sure you're on formularies and getting in with the insurance companies and coverage like those are two very, very different things. So one at a time for me is the way, and then pivot if you need to.
Yep. That's good advice. And 2 weeks feels like a good amount of time to wait. Is that what you're saying?
I'd give it at least a few months, because a few months, if you're finding, and now we're talking about maybe VP roles, national roles, they're going to take often a little longer. It depends on what you've done in the industry and who you already know in the industry, because a lot of people follow people, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would recommend at least a few weeks to months of choosing one target and going after it really, really well. But here's the thing, if you're finding that, okay, well, Claire, I've been networking with 10 people a day in this operations, a niche of this company, and I'm finding, I don't know if that's really exactly what I want to do. I'm not getting the traction. The story's not connecting for them. It's time to pivot something. So either you can choose another one of those roles, or you can look at your experience and say, okay, maybe the way that I'm presenting myself isn't coming across well with what they're trying to solve. And maybe my value for them isn't clear enough. So if you're not getting traction, it's always a really good idea to go back to the drawing board and revisit the professional documents that you're bringing to the table and ask yourself, now that I've gone down the rabbit hole on this one trajectory, is it what I really want? Am I still excited? Am I more excited than when I started? And if the answer is no, you might consider looking at those other roles and then pivot your entire strategy to those types of roles. That's my thought. What do you think? Similar, difference?
I guess, yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. And I've seen where when you're having discussions, a recruiter or a hiring manager will say, in speaking with you for this role, I have this other role that I think might be better suited for you. I've definitely seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking about when, and this is when companies are like in growth mode, which we're not seeing right now, but where they'll be open, like a consulting firm will be opening up a practice and they'll have a couple of different roles all within, there's a plethora of roles. And whether it makes, and they're pretty similar. I have to think through my thoughts on that, on how to handle these situations.
If they're that close in targeting, if they're that close, I'd be okay with saying apply to a few of them. We do tend to discourage applying online as the first step. But if, like Virginia's saying, if you're like, okay, we're trying to expand in the Southeast region because we're going to be launching this new product. They're all at a similar level, these roles that are open. And hey, lo and behold, you are open to relocation, apply away, right? Like go and connect with those people in that company. In that kind of case, if things are similar in the target, then I say it would be okay to have the conversations that you can with those decision makers you can reach and express that you want that type of role. And maybe in that case, location might not be as big of a deal.
No, I think that's a good point. And so my brother he lost his job 5 months ago, landed and started about 3 weeks ago. He actually got this particular job by applying online, but he was getting jobs by being, people were reaching out to him on LinkedIn. He was networking. He had a diversified job search strategy. And he had, I think with the company he ended up taking the job for, he was networking with one division, but then applied online to another division with the same company. But what he did that I feel like really helped him to have success applying online is that, number one, it's a niche role in a niche department. So that limits the pool, which elevated his chances. And then number two, he made sure to be connected strategically with other people in the company before he submitted online. And so that sort of establishes trust. It impacts how you show up when someone's searching for you. And so those little details, I feel like helped his resume to do better when he did apply online.
Because he laid that groundwork. I suspect he had a pretty amazing career coach as well. That's
free of charge. Yes, lucky man.
Yeah, he'll pay you back. You get first dibs at Christmas dinner.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the idea of the fact that you want to find people before you apply online, because especially in some cases, you could find that they're different hiring managers or different groups, even though it is a similar job, because different groups may have the same needs, but for different reasons. And you won't know that if you just apply online. So the more information you get, the better.
Well, Kenneth, from your perspective on LinkedIn expertise, how do you coach folks on, if they say, you know what, I'm really great in these areas, I want to target these two differing roles. How do you coach them to write their LinkedIn profile so they are putting themselves in the best light for the role they're choosing to target? And do you have them target one at a time,
Well,
or do you leave it open enough that it can be for multiple things?
there's two different ways to look at it. First of all, you're marketing yourself on LinkedIn, so you want to make sure if you have certain job titles, they definitely want to be within underneath your title.
Mm-hmm.
But you also want to use different avenues to market yourself and promote. Like your about section can mention different things that you've done, let's say within the 2 or 3 different roles. But I think the best way to go about it is to engage and find content for different that are related to the different roles. You can be like in IT, there's all different levels of IT, there's all different levels of marketing, and it's just about finding a different way to share your voice. There's no one right way to do any of this. I mean, I think the more you try and the more avenues you work off of, the better.
Yeah.
Not everything is going to work. I mean, even when we're talking about all these things on resumes and things, every situation is different. We were talking before you got on, Claire, about someone I'm working with who has never had a LinkedIn profile. So they're starting from the beginning, literally starting from the beginning. And this is the case where they may upload a resume and use that as a starting point. But okay, I'm uploading a basic resume. I don't have a picture yet. Can I start connecting with people? Do I start engaging? Do I have to have more of a robust profile? So if someone reached out to you and you saw someone with that, you probably wouldn't want to connect with them yet because you wouldn't know enough about them.
Or you'd wonder, is this account real?
Right.
Is this the real deal?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's I love that what people might not know is that Virginia and Kenneth and I and a lot of folks who are here to help job seekers, as a career, right? This is what we love to do. We are literally constantly talking to each other in the back channels
all the time. Yeah, we're crowdsourcing.
Yes.
Always, because
the answer is always it depends, and so
there's never a one way.
That's right. And so we talk to people with backgrounds in HR and recruiting and all of it. But Claire, I was thinking about what you were saying about sort of picking one target. When someone comes to me with a couple of options, when it comes to writing their LinkedIn, I really encourage them to lean one way or the other because it informs how I write. I write with the lens of that role. But what I do to begin with is I'll look at the two different targets and I'll say, this is the commonality that I could write to. But it will help to have a leaning one way or the other. And then often I'll write two different headlines for them to choose from, one focused on each avenue.
That's why you are the best. That is amazing.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard because people don't want to limit their options. But what they don't realize is that when you cast too wide a net, your stuff appears diluted.
Exactly. And it's basic marketing principles, right? If we're talking to everybody, we're not gonna, if I was a car manufacturer and I put out a new type of car and I just said, yep, this car is for like everyone, everywhere, every budget, every color, snow, desert, everything. It's not as specific as if I said, I am the manufacturer of Tesla, not a sponsor, but wouldn't that be cool? And this is for folks, right, who are concerned about having a battery up car. Maybe they're concerned about environmental issues and conserving resources for the environment. And maybe they don't really love super uber long road trips because you're slightly limited by your charging capability. But for those commuters who want a super slick, super mod, energy efficient car, there's Tesla. But that speaks specifically to one type
To
of
a
audience.
specific audience. Yeah,
And if
exactly.
and if anybody listening here is probably thinking like, even just saying the word Tesla, you
Mhm.
get that feeling of like, ooh, I've seen those on the highway, and
You
they're very
get
sleek.
you get the brand
Yep.
immediately that comes to mind, right?
Right. So same thing, targeting really does help,
Mhm.
and specifics do help. And I love that you give 2 headlines for your clients. So what's beautiful about that is really the core of the resume. Often we only have so many results that we remember and can talk about. But usually there are some key areas where a few things can be updated and repositioned, and you can use the majority of your resume for targeting new roles as
That's
long
right.
as you tweak some specific areas. So people often get a little bit stressed out and think, do I really have to have a specific resume for every single job? And my answer to you is probably, or at least when you're targeting a different type of role, tweak it. Because if you can make it sound closer to your customer, what they're looking to see, the challenges they're trying to solve, all those things, it really makes a huge difference in taking you out of the candidate pool of like, here are 100 candidates, you're just another candidate, to, oh, this person is like an obvious fit. You speak
Right.
in our language. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You're nodding, Kenneth. Anything else you want to add? Have we beaten
No,
this topic?
I'm just listening. I'm gonna have to drop off in a couple minutes anyway. So
Okay.
just to let you know.
I can't see the comments. Are there any specific questions? Claire, I saw
No,
that
there
yesterday.
actually are no comments. This is the only one I've seen here. I'm watching you all live.
LinkedIn is
Oh.
giving. Oh,
Yes.
I see. Let's see. I see older comments
LinkedIn
here.
Claire, yesterday there was someone that I remember seeing in a comment that you posted. This is a question that we could tackle today. And I don't know if that person was able to join us or not, but do you remember what it was?
Oh, you know what? Actually, the question was about targeting. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
And I know it was rather specific, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. And shoot, I hope he's watching, but if not,
If you're not watching, I watch the replay. Exactly.
Yep. Okay, let me pull that post up here and let's see. Okay, so it was talking about applying to 99 jobs and not being quite as specific as you can be. And the question
Did
is,
you find it? Because I have an example at the ready that we could talk about while you're looking.
All right, while you
okay.
guys are doing that, I'm just going to drop off the stream.
Okay.
Hi, Kenneth.
Bye, Kenneth.
Take care. So this week I worked with someone that had been doing financial services product management for the greater part of the last 10 years. And she wanted to get back to her roots that was like environmental, social, and governance and DEI. And but she also maybe wanted to she said, well, there's that, but there's a chance I might have to go abroad. And so I might need to more lean in on the financial service stuff, but it's all been around open banking and helping entrepreneurs and small businesses, all that. So what we did was we identified the commonality of those two or three options is social impact. And so I wrote the resume with that social impact focus and showed that all of her the products that she developed leaned into ESG, they leaned into DEI, that they were financial services or fintech products. So I was sort of able to sort of tie it all up in a bow, but I did give her two headlines, one that had more of a global focus in case she has to move abroad, and one in case she doesn't.
So that's great.
But that's an example of two avenues. They're sort of similar, but you have to find the common threads to write the story. And we leaned in on the ESG and the not CSI, CSR. ESG. I'm getting my acronyms confused.
I gotcha. It's funny. I find that, when you get somebody who says, yeah, I don't know how to tell my story. I've worked everywhere. I've had a really, interesting, twisty, turny career path. And what I find is exactly what you're talking about, is that sometimes people are drawn to roles because of the way that it makes them feel in a way that's slightly removed from the job description, right?
Yeah,
It's not all
it's the gut.
healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a client right now. She's she would be similar to yours in the social impact. But what she loves to do is to take these models of traditional selling of healthcare and lab testing,
Mhm.
and she likes to make a specific impact on the community and grow her business that way. And it
Yeah.
comes from, and this was reflected also as we're going through her career history. You know, she started talking about how when her kids were in school, she started to develop some programs that they could do within the community so that they could get more notoriety in the area and more funding from local businesses. Okay.
Wow.
So I was like, well, that's interesting. Okay. And then the next thing was something else where she was connecting with cancer patients, and you know, she gave them a platform to tell their story on these lesser known cancers, because when they did, other women weren't so afraid to come out and say, I got it and I didn't know all the resources available. Like, I'm getting chills talking about
Wow.
this
Yeah,
woman.
she's earned her spot in heaven. Yeah, for sure.
Truly, like double wings, right?
Yeah.
Like double wings. But she like you said, I feel like her commitment to community impact as an avenue for growth and making a different impact on people. It's almost like, not that sales comes second, but it really kind of does, because she's using the community impact to
Mhm.
do well at work, right? She's got to provide for her family, but she also is deeply, deeply driven to help people. And so she uses and leverages the opportunities she can because of the companies she's at, the resources that they have, to make an indelible impact on the
Community.
community. It's beautiful. But you're right. It's not that it's always been healthcare, but it's always been community focused.
Yeah. And so if that's something that she absolutely needs to have in her next job, or it's something that's a differentiator, you want to show that thread of being mission cause driven throughout.
Mhm.
And you certainly put it in the summary, and you weave it into the volunteer experience so that the reader sees the common thread throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. An amazing job because we get to do this. I found the question,
Oh yeah,
if
what
you're
was it? Okay.
ready.
All right.
Okay. Now it says, from Gregory DeRosiers. So if you are here, Gregory, or if you're watching later, this one's for you. It says, hello, Claire. One quick question about resume matching for making sure I have the keywords there. When I use tools like Teal, should I match it against the full job description or only the responsibilities and requirements section? I feel like the former confuses the matching system and it doesn't know what to do unless it knows what keywords to look up. So kind of a big one there. And you know, while I do think, Gregory, that matching keywords is a significant part of your strategy, particularly if you're also marketing yourself on LinkedIn, I would say to look at the keywords that you're finding and look at what they're asking in the job description and make sure that you're not just keyword matching, but you're really considering your experience and asking yourself, how did I do that? And while you're writing your bullet points, then you use that information to direct how you write about yourself. Because if if you're here a little bit earlier in the call today, and I hope you were, the first thing that Virginia and I would probably tell you is, do your research on LinkedIn, do your research with these job descriptions, but do your best to network with people first. So as long as it's not your only strategy, it's okay. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Virginia.
So full agreement. Here's what I do when I'm figuring out the keywords, because what you want are documents that resonate first and foremost for humans. But when people are scanning, especially like that first level screener maybe that doesn't know the role inside and out, they're scanning for certain words. So you want them to be peppered in. So I will use sites. I have not used Teal, but I've heard really good things about it. But like JobScan's another one. I use the Resume Builder tool on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn's Career Explorer tool. I'll type in the job description or job title, and a bunch of keywords always pop up. When I'm assuming Teal's the same way as JobScan. I focus on the bottom section of the job posting, not the top part that talks all about what the company's about. I look at the must-have and nice-to-have requirements, and I do a big data dump of keywords. Eliminate the duplicates, and that's sort of my list. From there, then I'll focus on the top 10, and I make sure to weave those into the story. But I write the story first, and then I'll take the resume and I'll run it one more time against the resume builder and see if there's anything I missed, and then add those in. But
Awesome.
when you bypass applying online as your first point of entry, and when you have a diversified job strategy that includes only applying to the jobs that you're really targeted that you meet a lot of 70% of the qualifications, that you've connected with people from those companies first, then in my experience, the keywords are not nearly as critical. Keywords can help a ton in LinkedIn, though, because they can help you show up higher in search. So focus your efforts there. Put that keywords in the headline. Put them in your job titles. Put them in the skills section at the bottom. So what do you think, Claire?
Because I feel like the next question is going to be, okay, well, what about when I put my resume on LinkedIn? So can you kind of give us your take on why you should or maybe shouldn't put your resume on your LinkedIn profile?
So there's two places where you can put it. One is you can just stick it right up for the whole world to see it. And to me, that is not a great idea because you lose the ability to customize your resume. You're losing the ability to control your narrative. But there is a behind the scenes place where you can put it. And now I'm spacing on where it is, but I know I've got it and I could find it. And it is for recruiters that have signed up for the platform, for LinkedIn's paid platform to see. And you can have a couple of versions on there. And what's cool about that is if there are keywords from the resume that somehow didn't, like let's say LinkedIn gives you 50 keywords to include, and there's a couple more in your resume, it'll actually add it to the list for the recruiter to see. So I am a fan of putting it in that backdoor place.
I think that's a really great option. I used to say, don't ever put your resume on LinkedIn. And the thing is that if I were to assume that everyone was really trying to like be a marketer on LinkedIn for their job and like noodle down, but sometimes, you're busy, or maybe, you're employed and you're trying to low key get your resume out there. That backdoor option is not a bad idea, especially
it's
if you
just
can
one
put
more
multiple
place.
versions.
Now, I'm trying to find where it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my screen. Hold on. Because I've got a screenshot of it here. I just think it's changing all the time. And so I always forget the exact names of stuff. But if you ever want to keep up with what's going on LinkedIn, follow Kevin D. Turner.
Yeah.
It is called Share Resume Data with Recruiters. You go to the Jobs tab, you go to Application Settings, you upload your resume, and then you toggle it so it says Share your resume data with all recruiters.
That's great. That's great.
Okay.
I'm so glad you shared that. Also, I just logged into the comments. I wonder if that'll make a difference.
Are you on
Paging
LinkedIn? Okay.
Kevin D. Turner. He's the president of LinkedIn.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my favorite.
On the regular, he posts 3 to 5 updates. It seems like every day that LinkedIn is doing. So
it's amazing.
And usually when there's a huge glitch going on in LinkedIn, it means they're getting ready to do an update, which I'm guessing that's what's happening since StreamYard's not working today.
Yeah, and this week was a little bit bananas with posting, and yesterday people weren't able to actually click on certain functions of the platform. So I have a feeling that things are changing significantly behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So we'll ride the wave, this next wave of updates. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so far, I mean, what I find is that we do tend to get some of the worried requests in my inbox lately about, hey, is LinkedIn even worth using anymore for my job search? And while, we talk a lot about don't let it be your only approach, and maybe it's not even your first approach, maybe it's more of the research arm of your approach, it's still such an incredible tool because it's like a massive uplifting networking event every single day. And I was speaking with a gentleman the other day who was saying, "Hey, I'm going to this conference and I am not advertising that I'm looking for a role." He's a global operations manager. So he's going to this conference and he wanted to start speaking with the other companies who would be there. And he said, "I'm rusty, Claire. Like, tell me, do I just hand out my business cards? Like, do I just, drop by tables and hand business cards out and like whisper in their ear and say like, hey, if you know anything?" And I
Yeah.
said, honestly, it's just like LinkedIn. You're going to meet a ton of people. And the beauty is, every single person that you connect with, you will exponentially grow your network, because once you build rapport with that person, they're thinking of their entire network should you go about the right way to help you. But it's the same thing at the conference. I said, the best way is to chat people up. Doesn't necessarily have to be about work, and do your best to get that conversation out of the room. Grab a cell number, grab LinkedIn, say, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. Use the DMs to your advantage, because everyone at a conference like that is going to have a barrier of, I'm trying to impress the other people here. I'm trying to, be a face of a company right now. So I'm very buttoned up. So everything's going to be, by the book. Or there's just an onslaught of people in that room. But getting people out of that conference room and getting people that you meet out of the comment sections or the groups in LinkedIn and getting them one-on-one to really talk to people and build and foster those relationships, I feel like that's where LinkedIn, above all else, is the most incredible tool that it is.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever someone says, can I skip using LinkedIn for my job search? To me, it's one of the more valuable platforms because it's really more than one tool. It is the world's greatest CRM. It has replaced the old style Rolodex, but
Yep.
you can use it the search filters are phenomenal. You can search by where someone lives, what school they went to, what former companies they work with. If you want to make a change, you can search for people that maybe held a different role. So it can help you figure out who to target. It can help you learn a ton about companies. So that's just the research side. That doesn't even tackle the conversation piece. But I agree with you. It's a great place to get conversations started, but then catapult those suckers off the platform, get them on the phone, on Zoom, in person if you can. But it is a great launching pad for that. You can search if you want to start sharing your voice on the platform and you're too nervous to start maybe posting on your own. You can comment and you can practice getting your voice out there through comments, but you can search by posts to see who in your industry is posting, and that's a great way to start turning cold connections warm that then you can turn into official connections that then can go off the platform.
Yeah. In fact, that's how Virginia and I met, was right here on LinkedIn.
I know. I was trying to remember how it was, though. I know it was LinkedIn. I couldn't remember if it was just comments or what.
I think I reached out to you shortly after we started our own business. And then you introduced me to some other amazing writers too, Sarah and Adrian and all of them. But yeah, it's been an incredibly helpful place for careers, for business. And even I'm trying to dip my toe in on Twitter or X now and Facebook and all, all the other ones. And there's just something about LinkedIn because it's a little more buttoned up, which means it's a little more respectful and it's a little more uplifting here. So it's a good vibe and definitely a great resource.
And for people that hate social media, then LinkedIn is the place for you. It's sort of if you have to pick one, have it be that. Yeah, I'm on all of them. I really don't like any of them except for this one. But when you and I spoke, I forgot that I had given you a couple of names, but that's the strategy that you alluded to back when I call it networking in threes. Every time you speak with someone, make sure the end of your conversations you say, can you think of 3 other people that maybe I should be speaking with?
Mhm.
And do that each and every time you have a conversation, and your network will grow.
This is gold. Seriously, you guys, it's as simple as that, because people do generally want to help other people. Like, if there's something in us that's like, first we're, a little bit flattered that someone asked for our help and our advice, if we've got the time. But then also, I mean, what would you say, Virginia? Are people generally pretty willing to share those 3 more names or 2 more names?
Yeah, or maybe even if they say, I can't think of 3, but here's 2.
Mhm.
If you are specific with your ask, I am looking for this kind of role in this kind of a company, or I'm looking to speak with someone who did this, that, or the other, then people are willing to help. And you don't need everyone to be helpful. You just need a couple of people to be helpful.
Mhm.
Each connection inches you closer to that finish line.
Yeah.
And then
I
hopefully
saw
and then you can loop back with the people who suggested the names. And so it lets you to thank them and let them know how the conversation went, and it keeps things going.
Oh my gosh, that is such a power tip. Following back up with the person who gave you the connection. There have been so many times where I've connected somebody and not received a message saying, and it's not that I'm looking for thanks, but I do want to make sure that they took the advice and tried it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're not just recommending anyone, you're recommending people who are like a right fit to their problem. So do be sure, like Virginia said, to follow up with those people who are willing to share those connections with you. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be embarrassed if it's been a long time since you've spoken with people. I know I have people reach out to me from high school that I haven't talked to in
mm,
ages, and I'm happy to speak with them. I'm
yeah.
excited to catch up. So, um, for every person that says I'm not talking to you because it's been 20 years, there's a couple of us that are happy to speak with people that it's been 20 years or more than 20 years.
Give us a
Many
chance.
years.
We'd love to chat. I just saw a question come in from Jay Lamone. They said, how do you reconcile your resume against your LinkedIn presence? Are they the same, different, and how do you make each complementary? I'm gonna let you run with that one,
Good
Virginia.
question. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. First of all, LinkedIn and resumes are absolutely not a cut and paste. They
Mm,
used to be 15 years ago, but sadly no longer. You have to do a little bit more work.
mm,
LinkedIn the tone is very different, right? Resumes are more formal. LinkedIn is conversational. The resume is super, super targeted. Sometimes LinkedIn has additional details that um, that expand upon your brand, details that you might include a couple of stories or things about outside of your career that speak to the brand that you wouldn't on the resume.
mhm,
um, there are certain details that you don't share on LinkedIn that you would on the resume. If you let's say you're currently employed, and when your company is a hot mess, but you have helped to turn things around, or the company suffered losses, you're not going to throw your company under the bus on LinkedIn. So
mhm,
you're certainly not going to share that. Sometimes there's revenue numbers that are not public, so you can't share that stuff on LinkedIn. So those are some details that I don't include with
mhm.
the experience section. I don't include every single bullet, but what I will do is a couple of paragraphs that show this is what I was brought to do, and here's some rough highlights. How about you?
Mhm. I mean, a full agreement with everything you shared. And then the next, oh, and Jay Lamone is John. Hi, John. Thank you
Hi,
so much
John.
for your question. Great to meet you. So, my addition would be LinkedIn has a robust library of courses. So, a question I get commonly, which sort of piggybacks on what you're sharing here, John, is what if I want to pivot or get promoted, or I have been in, I'm experiencing a career gap, or I'm taking some time away to take care of my family or my health. And LinkedIn has so many courses, also not a sponsor. Come on, LinkedIn, sponsor us. But the thing you can also do is strategically look for courses that you can take to upskill and to refresh what you have going on, so that when somebody's taking a look at you, and yes, maybe you are within a career gap and you can speak to it, you can also say, yep, but I'm not over here twiddling my thumbs. I'm preparing for the value I'm going to deliver to my next place. So places like LinkedIn, places like Coursera. You can even go back to if you anyone listening has gone to college. I'm not sure exactly about high schools, but I know a lot of community colleges will offer short classes and certifications and things that they didn't used to. So you can really add to the skill that you have in a time where maybe you're pressing pause or maybe you didn't have a choice after a layoff. And certainly if you do it on LinkedIn, those come up on your profile. So it's also good to be choosy, like, uh, do choose ones that you feel would benefit you and also be somewhat impressive and relevant to the roles that you're targeting or the industry if you're trying to make yourself relevant. And that can be kind of a nice little boost. The other thing I'll mention are testimonials. I cannot stress the value of social proof. Like we've talked about it all week. I had my team sit down and we wrote an entire quarter's content on testimonials. We have now pumped out so many templates for testimonials. You guys, social proof is pivotal, and it's basically someone else vouching for you. And how many of us go out to eat, but the first thing we do is check the Yelp reviews? It's the same thing with hiring. If possible, do generate some testimonials for yourself. Ask a colleague or someone you used to work with, hey, do you mind, sharing your experience of working with me? If they don't know what to say, share a template with them. Here's what I was thinking, or here's what I would love for you to highlight specifically this project that we worked on together. By the way, I would love to write you a testimonial. So when you do, just remember that when other people help you market yourself, it really does help to build the bigger brand story of how great you are to work with. And look, here's, John, Sally, and Amos here to share their experiences doing so as well. So testimonials are big for us.
I love both of those. My add on the education piece is that LinkedIn Learning is part of premium. So if you pay for premium, you get it, but you can do LinkedIn free for 30 days and you can access a lot of stuff. Where I also feel like leveraging LinkedIn Learning is helpful is for people that are worried about age discrimination, because people feel like you are not, the bias that people have against that generation is that they are not open to learning, not open to change. So if you can sort of describe yourself on your about section as a lifelong learner, and then you show that you've taken these courses, whether you take them on Coursera and add them to your LinkedIn or they pop up automatically having used LinkedIn Learning, that helps to mitigate that myth. The piece about the testimonials, the other thing that I think is important is to make sure, so what I see is people that maybe had a bunch from their role 8 years ago and then they haven't updated it. So think about the things, the parts of your brand that you want to make sure are highlighted. So if you being a leader is really important to you in your next role, you need to have people that speak to your leadership. So it's good to have some bosses. Sometimes it's good to have some peers. Sometimes it's good to have some direct reports, depending on the messaging that you're trying to convey in the testimonials. But yeah, when someone can describe what you're trying to say about yourself in their words, there's a ton of power in that.
Oh, totally. And give them some help, because a lot of times people want to help, like Virginia, like you were saying, people want to help, but they might not know what to say, or sometimes reviews make people nervous. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to brag on you, right? Like, how does this work? And if you give them a couple things you would love for them to touch on, because what your goal is. So if you're trying to say that you are ready to be promoted to manage people, you might have someone mention their experience with you when you had to lead a launch with your team in pharma, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah, like group leadership. Yeah.
Exactly. And it will really help, because it's not just a fluff testimonial, and it's wonderful when people want to write testimonials for us, but by giving them a little bit of grit, a little bit of specifics to kind of focus it really helps it takes the pressure off of them, and it can really help to set you up in the light that you're going for. So
I wonder how good, I have not seen it used for this, but I wonder how good ChatGPT would be about helping you to eliminate the writer's block with a recommendation.
Oh, that's a good idea for the next episode.
Yeah,
See,
just
that's what
don't
we
put
do.
your
We leave
super
you hanging.
duper, yeah, don't put your super duper personal information on ChatGPT. But if you could ask it generic yet specific questions, I bet it could give you some good stuff.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, I love doing these shows with you,
I
Virginia. This is
know,
so fun.
and we are out of time. I just realized.
It always flies.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm sorry about the tech glitches, but thank you for those who hung in there. We will be back next month. We don't know exactly when, but we do this once a month and we alternate LinkedIn Lives or YouTube Lives. And what's the other one called? LinkedIn Audio.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you guys have any specific questions like we answered earlier in the show, please feel free to send them directly to Virginia, to Kenneth, and myself, and we'll make sure that we answer them live on the show. And while you're sitting here watching us wrap this up, make sure we're connected. Send a connection request to each of us. Follow what we share, because I know that myself, Virginia, and Kenneth share a ton of strategy for your career for free. So please feel free to connect with us and take on all of that content. And thank you so much for your questions, you guys. And gosh, until next time, see you later or hear you later.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, everyone.